to leave for any reason, or you just can't make a session, you can go on. The only exception to that are obviously the tours at River Villa that are going on at $10 a tour, and the tours at the cemetery, which I hope you can make, because Mike has folks, volunteers there, that are going to walk you through some of the people who are currently living at the cemetery or resting at the cemetery who used to live on Main Street. So some of our historic properties on Main Street, you can tie to the lives of the people that lived there or built those homes. So, I guess I should introduce myself. Most of you know me. I'm Alicia Fitz with the Historic Commission. Dana Giroux is with the library. We have some fabulous volunteers with the yellow shirts on, and they'll be floating around, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And meanwhile, Gwynne Evans pretty much doesn't need an introduction. He is the consummate keeper of all things Spring Hill. In fact, he's bid against some people in this room for some of those things, more than once. We appreciate him being here because in addition to being the keeper of all things, he is a lifelong Spring Hillian, a teacher at the school, and more importantly, in my world, he's the best storyteller of our history that I think I know of. I know he'll take some questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Gwynne and let him get to running.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I tell people I'm not a historian, I'm a collector of history because I have to wear a name tag at school so I don't forget who I am. So that's the reason I like to collect stuff. But I started years ago when, the development came in and we started losing all our buildings and stuff, and just, realized that there was no place to keep it. It was not being stored and kept. Some stuff actually got thrown away a couple of times, so I just kind of took it upon myself to start swirling stuff back. The next thing I know, I've got a stack that my wife fusses at me quite frequently about where I've got it piled. But anyway, so as a teacher, I have to start off with a quiz, a top quiz. I know a few of you know the answer to the question, so don't. I just want you to raise your hand if anybody can tell me where Yules, Tennessee is. I know where Yules, Tennessee is? Wow, nobody? That doesn't surprise me, actually. It's actually, most people know it as Yules Station. You go down Depot Street and go across the railroad track, that's Yules, Tennessee, or Yules Station. Now, the story I heard was told was that right after the Civil War, when General Ewell moved to Spring Hill, he encamped Captain Brown and started importing dairy, jerseys, and horses. They needed a place to get them on the rail, and there was no depot. So the city wouldn't give them the land, so Ewell Farm gave them the land. So instead of the city of Spring Hill Station, it was Ewell Station. It stayed that way until the end of World War II, when they determined it was way too confusing. Nobody knew where Yules, Tennessee was. I mean, it literally doesn't exist. It's anything but just a depot, and it stayed that way. But anyway, that's the sign. This sign here, if you see at the floor here, the 6-foot porcelain enamel sign. It's in really rough shape. But we used to metal detect a lot, and I've got some of the Civil War relics from Spring Hill. But I was actually metal detecting one day down by the depot, and I got a really big signal. Anyway, I started digging, and I hit 2 L's. I thought, this thing's going to say Yules. It's going to say Yules. It said Spring Hill. Okay, that's just good. So I remember in the 60s, and the Cub Scouts were looking at buying the depot and turning it into our meeting place, but there were too many vagabonds and too many bottles of things laying around that we didn't need to play with, so they ended up tearing it down. And evidently, this sign was one of the signs on the tracks as you come up, at the passenger train, to let you know where your stop was. So that's how we ended up from Yules Station, Yules, Tennessee, to Spring Hill Station. And really, I never really know how to start these or do these things. I just try to kind of make them up as I go along. But a lot of people don't know how much history we do have in Spring Hill. Horse and jerseys. If you haven't been out to Yules, Tennessee, to the station, the camel farm there is still there. It's the oldest continuously milking Jersey herd in the country. They started about 1870. That was just part of the reason for the railhead, and they were. It was a large corral system and everything, so that you could bring your animals to the track and load them. But they're still there. They actually are started, I think, officially within the next week. They're going to be processing and selling their own milk. About 1870, they were the second Jersey herd in the country. And they are still the oldest continuously milking Jersey herd in the United States. Claiborne Farms, Claiborne was one of the generals killed in Franklin or Cleveland. And you ought to go by and see that place, because right next to their building is Major Campbell Brown. If you know anything about dairy cattle or cattle, they paid you based on the butter fat. So you don't know what butter fat is, but because you buy the pasteurized homogenized stuff. But this is an 1886 version of everybody did their own butter fat. Well, you could cheat, kind of like putting your finger on the scales. You know, if you knew how to do butter fat right, you would get more butter fat. The more butter fat in your milk, the more you got paid. So they started receiving and testing, and the test is a brick building with a slate roof. You can't miss it. They would test your samples and give you an official, you know, butter fat rating, and you know, that's what started testing of butter fat, official testing of butter fat, instead of just going putting your finger on the scale. But anyway, not many people know that. It's kind of one of those trivial things. Another one of the big things that people don't know, so we have jerseys, and I've got several of the books. I brought just kind of a mixed mash of everything. But if you look in these sales catalogs, they're talking about selling Jersey cattle or pacing horses or trotter horses. People would come from all over the country to buy the registered jerseys or the pacing horses. Because what a lot of people don't know is that Spring Hill was one of the biggest, or one of the bigger areas for such a small area for horse racing, trotting and pacing. The Civil War came, we were really big, and what everybody did was they packed up their horses and went north. Because Tennessee and Virginia, the South lost more war battles in Tennessee and Virginia than anywhere else in the country, which means we had a lot of battles. So they'd take their horses to use in battle. They didn't want that. They had these high-dollar horses, so they packed up their horses and their horse racing, and they went north. And is that the racetrack that was? Is it still there? I don't even know. It's gone.
I don't know.
I don't know. There was a pacing trotting track right across from Target, and I don't know that it's still there. I haven't seen an aerial photograph in so long. I don't know that it's still there. But right behind that brick house, right across from Target, there was a trotting track that was associated with horse racing in Spring Hill. In fact, Spring Hill had the first horse. The 2-minute mile was kind of like, you know, the 4-minute mile in the run. You can't break the 4-minute mile run. Well, breaking the 2-minute mile and pacing was like that, you know, that carrot that you couldn't reach. This is Star Corner. This is the photo that hang at Ewell Station, Ewell Farm, which is right across the tracks there at the end of Depot Street. He was the first horse to break the 2-minute mile. It's such a big deal that they gave him his own alcohol. You had to be pretty special, but you'll see Star Ported, you know, on a lot of stuff, a lot of advertising. But yeah, he got his own pure rye. Anyway, and this happened. This is one bottle. It was 1895, 159 and a quarter. So he paced the official at his official time was 159 and a quarter. So he was the first horse to break the 2-minute mile record. You know, he was born and raised here in Spring Hill. You know where Lowe's is? Yeah. He spread all over that hill because he was originally, that's where there was a sign, one of those Tennessee signs. He was buried there. Not anymore. But anyway, that's just a little bit, but racing was big. I've got a lot of these sales catalogs. I've got a bunch of the catalogs. You're welcome to pick them up. Any of this stuff you're welcome to pick up, look at. I do. I look at it all the time. The other thing that a lot of people don't know about that we had was, for such a small community to have that much history, but we had our own military academy. You know, in fact, the house I live in was built by one of the Branhams of Branham and Hughes. It was Branham and Hughes Military Academy, and then Branham and Hughes when they started letting girls in. But when we tore one of the walls off, we remodeled the house and pulled one of the fireplaces down, we found an 1880s letter from the Branham where it had been written to him there at the house. So actually living what little history we have left in as far as houses go in Spring Hill. But Branham and Hughes Military Academy became it was actually the Girls Labor Academy, then Branham and Hughes Military Academy, and then, no, that's not right. Yeah, something before that. Then the Orphans Home, of course everybody knew the Children's Home. But anyway, it was there until the 30s. I have lots of their annuals. This is 1905, 03, I've got a bunch of their annuals, I just brought a few of them. But one of the things to show the kind of quality, if you go looking at their stuff, I've got, but this was how big the deal it was. This was, I've never found any other than these. These were actually put out a newspaper. Now in 1930, how much money did it cost during the Depression to print a newspaper in green and red? You know, so that was, those kids paid a lot to go to that school. Of course, 2 years later, they were broke, you know. Could have been a newspaper that did it. But anyway, but I mean, I've got registries of the students. I've got graduation letters. In fact, that's what this is. This is where one of them graduated in 1912. I've got a lot of this. I've got one guy's. I've got a lot of his pictures. They had a football team. You know, they played sports, all different sports. This guy was Arnold Peary. He was out of Columbia. I've got a bunch of it. I found a whole box of his, stash of his stuff. I've got report cards. I've got just, I will sit for hours and go through pieces of paper if I want to drive my wife nuts. But anyway, keeps me out of hair. You know, you're welcome to pick up anything. The purple and white, that was this is their commencement letter, you know, issue 1915. But I mean, people came from all over the country to Spring Hill to go to school, send their kids to school. They even took girls, especially after the Depression and needed money. I think that's when they dropped the military part, and it was just Brandon Hughes. There was somebody asked me about this one earlier. What this was, this is not Brandon Hughes, I guess, but this was the oldest house in Spring. According to Effie Heiss, who a lot of you know or don't, this house was out Jim Moore Road. And it was some of her family. If you look really close for those of you, this gentleman right here, if you knew Tim Murphy, redheaded Tim Murphy, if you look at that real close at a glance, that's Tim Murphy's great gotta be. This was out, it was, she didn't know exactly how old it was, but it had to be, 18 teens or so that it was built. It was a log cabin, and the developer that bought it, we had a conversation with him one day. He said, we bulldozed it. I said, it was poplar log. He said, it had termites. I said, no. I'd have entomology classes. Termites don't eat poplar. So anyway, that's what happened to the oldest town. Now, I guess the doctor's house is the oldest house in Springfield. But anyway, Spring Hill just had a lot of history. But you don't find a lot of the stuff. That's the reason it's so hard to find, and the reason I hate to see any of it destroyed at all is there wasn't much of it. When I graduated from high school, and the kids say 1802, but anyway, it wasn't quite that long. 78, there were 696 people in corporate city limits of Spring Hill. 696 was 750 K through 12, correct? 150 in high school. So there wasn't a lot of our history to have to begin with. So when you destroy any of it, it doesn't take much of it to get gone. This is an example of, I guarantee you there are not many of these. I sat for about 4 hours one day digging through mouse poop, and it was nasty. The last two pieces of paper, I was chunking stuff. It was unusable, and I was throwing it away. The last piece of paper where the mouse stopped. He stopped. One piece of paper above this. And I pulled it out, and I had to sit down. Well, I was already sitting down, so I had to lay down. But this is the commencement play, May 15th, 1935, for the first graduation of Spring Hill High School at the new school. This is May 36th, the commencement. Those were stacked on top of each other, and the mouse poop stopped right here. But I did. It took me a minute, but you look at the names that are on here, and of course they've long since been gone. But these are the people that made Spring Hill what it was. That's when it was nothing. The businesses, all the little businesses, businesses that were in town, like the O's. I mean, you just don't. This is probably teens or before. There's just not much of our history left. But I went to college, UT Martin. Never will forget. My roommate was from. Yeah, that's New York. And when he said said it, when he said it was Neang, Brooklyn, no, the Bronx. He was from the Bronx. Well, he talked like, you know what he told me? He said when he moved here, the most amazing thing that he found, or thought, we wore shoes. He didn't think we wore shoes down here. We even had stores. But anyway, we actually had stores. We had artists. We had today, this is one of my favorite pieces. I've got a few things, 2 or 3 favorites. This is probably number 3 or 4. Maury Thompson was an artist. And I forget there's a term, if you make it, it's like NASCAR drivers. Well, she was the NASCAR driver of art. She actually is a numbered, whatever, there's a term that they use for artists that are acknowledged artists. She did portraits, landscapes. But what she would do, I've got 2, I've got this one. After a storm, she lived out by the experiment stations, Sanford's, back on the backside by the red church and the brick wall and the, Janice knows where it is, the cemetery back there is still there. But after storms, it would blow the wooden shingles off the roof. And she would go by and pick up the shingles and paint on them. And this is one of those shingles. I do have a canvas that I've got that needs to be professionally cleaned. And I'm almost 100% certain it's looking across the field at the top of the old church that was there. The corner of the church is all that's left, but it's over there right on the creek, Rutherford Creek. But yeah, we had known artists here in Spring Hill. We had our own bank. We actually had money so we could buy our shoes. The Bank of Spring Hill, James Gary has actually got the how much money, how in the banks, you go in an old bank and they would have how much money they had in the bank, or their assets and stuff. He's actually got the little sign that showed how much money they had. We had telephone service for a while. I like the old phone. If you really want to, I love the old phone books because you can go back and say, yeah, I remember that. What's funny is I can't remember my name and I can't remember somebody's name, but I can remember my girlfriend's first number. I got it right. Yeah. But anyway, Spring Hill, we've had some ups and downs. 30, 37, 38, we burned down one side of it. 48, we burned the other side. We went and bought a fire engine. It cost us money. This is the letter that the city of Spring Hill aldermen from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in 1947, where soon after the 37 fire, which destroyed the east side, basically they went out and bought this fire engine for $700-800, which they did not have the money for. I mean, that cleaned out their coffers. They were asking citizens of Spring Hill to donate to pay for the fire engine. So that was, it was in that same box that the mouse almost got. So,
Y'all, you can help donate to preserve that fire engine right now.
Yes.
Fire Bell needs your help.
Yeah, Fire Bell is still around. They restored her, was it 5 or 6 years ago?
More than that.
More than that. Time flies.
10 maybe.
But they did, was Fire Bell the one that they burnt they parked between it wouldn't start? And they parked it down on Depot Street where the 2 big barns burnt, and it melted the bubble off the top. Yeah. It wouldn't start. I think they got a unit after that. But anyway. But it needs restoring. This is another thing. This is 1947. This is the official ballot of Spring Hill that year. The ones running for mayor were James Birch and Charlie Mahon. Had about as many people turn out for the election as we did last year. 36 voted for Mr. Birch and 31 for Mr. Mahon. That's about the same we had for this presidential election in Spring Hill. But anyway, it's our history, And like I say, I can't remember when I look at it, but it's just sad that we're losing so much of it. We had tried to get a museum started, and actually the county is actually finally talking about building a museum or converting the bottom floor of the courthouse in Columbia, the bottom of that, into a Maury County History Museum. Actually, we had developed a 504c3, and GM had promised us 5 acres to build a Maury County History Museum there at the school, and that was 8 years ago, and they have since reneged on that deal. But anyway, that's another story. But this, like, you know, this is something I found, and it's got, now, this is when Thompson Station played Spring Hill in softball. Thompson Station played Franklin. Thompson Station played Howard View, 1946. Where's Howard View? I have no idea. Knob Creek, I know where Knob Creek is, you know, but this was when these were all little schools. These were just small Maury County, Spring Hill schools. One thing I didn't bring, and I meant to tell you, was Effie's house, Westview, on Depot Street. Westview was the first public school in Maury County paid for with taxpayer money. And when they got ready to tear it down, because I grew up next to them forever, Effie always told a story about a chalkboard in the school, and it had a piece of chalk and an eraser behind this wall. So when they moved out, I said, Effie, can I tear down that wall? She said, sure. I tore down the wall, and it was, sure enough, it was a chalkboard, still had writing on it. The eraser wasn't there. So I took my chainsaw and cut the wall out. I've got it at the house. And I thought, well, if there's one where there's smoke, so I started ripping out walls. And I think I ended up with either 4 or 5 of these chalkboards that were in the first public school of Maury County, which was 3 houses down from me. And literally, at 5 o'clock one morning, I was in there at midnight, I got up and went down, and the guy was unloading the track hoe to tear it down. And I said, man, I got one more chalkboard in that room, I know, and there were more. I mean, it's eventually. I said, will you let me go in and cut this out before you tear it down? He looked at me and he said, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tear this back room down, the garage. I ain't gonna look to see if you're still in there. When I get through with it, I'm gonna start on the house. I went out the front door carrying a load of chalkboard as he ripped the back porch off the house. So anyway, but you know, that's what it takes sometimes to find our history. Civil War history. You can read. I've got some articles up here. This is when there was a guy was sent home for consumption. They were stationed here in Spring Hill was occupied the whole war. Both sides. Confederates were here for a while with Van Dorn, 38. Van Dorn. I don't know what's in this box. This Van Dorn. Some people will keep anything. When they were remodeling Ferguson Hall, they found some dried blood that they had, and they got a relative of Van Dorn that they did DNA on. And they called me and they said, "Do you want a sample of this dried blood?" I said, "Well, you know I do." Van Dorn. The conclusion was inconclusive. They did say it was a white male, but they're not sure it was Van Dorn. But anyway, some people will say anything. Yeah, I mean, we were inundated for 4 or 5 years. And this was one of my more interesting finds. There were only 30 of these weapons that went through Spring Hill, Maury County. You know, it's called a Whitworth rifle, it's a sniper rifle. This is a sniper round. I mean, they you know, if you dig around in Metal Tech Spring Hill, unfortunately, there's not a lot left to dig, but it went on here. I don't care what they say. Was there a battle? Was there not a battle? People died. You know, and that's, you know, all that history is covered over a lot of it. But I'm glad that they have conserved the battlefield. I mean, it's in Rippleville and all that we have, but a lot of people died in this area, either from bullets or disease or anything. And that's part of our history, you know. Right or wrong, left or right. It's just part of our history. It needs to be. If you went to a Spring Hill football game, this is probably Ann's, I don't know. This is what you wore. This was our Spring Hill stuff. You know, this was our emblem. This is what, right, what is it, 60s? 60s? Yeah. Now we've got they actually took the sabers out of the guy's hands. I'm like, you're kidding me. They put it back on. But anyway, this is what you wore. Spring Hill football game. Spring Hill was 696 people, except for about 5 Friday nights a year. There'd be 2,000 people. You stood 4 deep all the way around that football field. They came out of the woodworks to watch a football game. Wasn't nothing else to do. Even practice. They did, yeah. That's a story I won't tell in public. Oh, what the heck. Yeah, my freshman year, I was like 80 pounds soaking wet, and everybody came the first day of practice. They had the smallest pair of pants on that they had to practice with, and I took off running the 40-yard sprint, and we felt the drag. The whole darn town was standing there. Anyway, there we go. Too much information. In the 70s, about 75, if I remember correctly, this building right here, in fact, it had to be about 75, the guitar shop. Bruce Scott moved to town. Bruce was a character. He was from Connecticut, and probably one of the more intelligent people I ever met, but you want to have an argument, just say something different than he thought you were on. It was on, you know? But one of those talented men I ever met. If you broke a Gibson guitar, you shipped it to Spring Hill. Spring Hill, if you buy a Gibson Spring Hill series guitar, there's 400 and some of those that were made. They're acoustic guitar. Gibson wanted an acoustic guitar. They're built, 440 something of them were built here in Spring Hill by Bruce and Mike, yes. Well, after he quit building guitars, he started building dulcimers. This is a Crying Otter dulcimer. This was built here in Spring Hill. And then he basically became allergic to the dust and had to quit. But if you and Bruce wanted the first guitar from the series, and the Gibson CEO and president wanted the first guitar. Okay. This is how smart Bruce was. Bruce said, okay, this was almost a deal breaker. So what did Bruce do? He gave him 0001. What did she have, or he have? 0000. It's still here in Spring Hill somewhere. But try to buy one of those things. They're expensive. But yeah, I mean, right here, and that's when we were 696 people. Started saying, 7'1.5" H. Parks was the tallest doughboy in World War I from Spring Hill, Tennessee. Who knew? You know? Yep, Spring Hill, Tennessee. Sergeant Homer H. Parks, Spring Hill, Tennessee. He was 6 feet 9 inches in his socks. 1893. Yeah, we got all kind of history we didn't know about. But, you know, it's just, I look for anything, collect anything, keep anything. This was actually just a wet rock. William Kennard wrote his name in his box and put Spring Hill, Tennessee. It was probably at a business, at Kennard's business, you know. Also, and I don't know that this ever was in Spring Hill, but I've got the Cigar Store Indian from Staines. And I also have the chopping block that came out of Staines. So couldn't get that in the door. But it was, that's some of the stuff she makes me dust around quite often. But and the thing about it was, you know, it's just, I don't know, grocery stores. This was one of the trophies that they won for showing horses in the 1800s. Now, Spring Hill had a lot of history. It's just, we did a lot of things for such a small group of people. And we need to find a place to put it. I really had hoped we were going to get the deal worked out with GM, but they backed out on us, so that's not good anyway. This is probably my favorite piece. This was 1865, and what this is, it's a hand-drawn map of the Battle of Spring Hill and where the guy was located. He talks about where he was located during the battle. Just to kind of give you a reference point, looking at it upside down, the cemetery is right here, so this would be about McDonald's on 31 right here. But he sat down and took the time to draw. He was in several battles, Pulaski, Franklin, Spring Hill, Nashville. But for some reason or another, Spring Hill stuck in his mind. And he sat down and wrote where he was and drew it out. This is probably one of my favorite pieces of my collection, one of the better pieces of my collection. One of my second favorite, or one of the other pieces is, this was these, you know, the Ewells, you know, General Ewell and, Major Campbell Brown and Captain Horner, you know, they all came here, so they had money. They actually had a gun club, a clay target club, and this is one of their pins or ribbons that they won, from the Ewell's Gun Club. But anyway, some things are, you talking about the mouse droppings and stopping. When they were tearing down one of the houses on Main Street, I got permission to salvage what I could get out of it. I took the siding off the house of that house and I put it on the siding of my house. But I was up in the attic getting some stuff out. It was getting dark, so I couldn't see. So I took a sledgehammer and knocked a hole in the end of the eave so I could let some sunlight in. And this beam of light hit the attic. I hit the shine on that right there. This is and I've got several of these. Again, Ewell Station. I've got someone talking about Ewell's Telegraph Station. But this is Captain Pointer. The Pointers, you know, are a long-time family here. But they would take these shipping crates when they came off the rail and got out whatever they wanted. They used everything. They didn't throw everything away like we do now. They just break them down and use them. So they actually had used it to build that house. So I almost tore the house down for them, actually.
What house was that?
The next to the Church of Christ. When they made the parking lot.
East or the West Buckner's house?
Yeah, the one north of the church,
Okay.
where the parking lot is now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I took the siding off of it. If you go on my back porch, the siding on it, I took the siding off my house, the new stuff, and I built my house, added on my house to their house. But there were 2 or 3 of these in the attic that they had actually used to put the roof on with. Yeah, I literally cut the rafters of the thing, you know. I was afraid it was going to fall on me before I get out. But, you know, I'll salvage anything, salvage anything. But businesses, we had all kind of little businesses. Mathis, y'all remember Marsh Mathis? Marsh had a garage. It was at the Wishy-Washy. Was where that one was, which became Bones. I've got Bones sign. You know, it's 8x8 metal sign. I've got it at the house. I've got stuff my life. You know, every time I drag it stuff. But you know, we were a small place, but we had a lot of stuff. You had, I mean, it was, you know, you had to get what you needed. You could get clothes, shoes. I still can't get over that. He honestly said that. He believed that anyway. But, you know, it's just, you're welcome to come up and look at us. Football back in the 70s. Oh man, we played all over the place. We won all kind of things. Red Raiders. We marked our history of the high school. Every month, we got a Red Raider. Was it every month they came out, or quarterly? You know, they were like a dime, but it'd be the high school history. You know, see you, Gray Campbell. Yeah, I graduated. This is your graduation. But there's a lot of history. Here's one I saw something about Buddy had written in here. So I've probably got 100 of these or more. All the way back to the 40s that I have squirreled back. I started copying them. Going to try to put out, you know, it just takes forever. I've got several more. Yeah. They put out a Christmas edition. You know. This is our history. I actually found I would look through old books, and I've got a book at home. And it was Brandon Hughes student had it in the back page. They had written the scores, the ball games, the football games on the back page. And I can tell you, it was 1903. I can tell you the scores of the football teams that year. Tornado, 63. I was 3 years old on Depot Street. Daddy, I remember Daddy saying he got up thought he heard a train coming, which they did. We were only a quarter of a mile away. Daddy went out the front door and it went through the backyard. Right down the middle of Depot Street. Yeah, it pretty well wiped us out. It took tops off buildings. That's what Spring Hill looked like. In January 11, 1963. It pretty well. So Spring Hill, we burnt the east side in 37, 47, we burnt the west side, 63 tried to blow us away, and we're still here. You know, but I've got some other pictures up here about the school, some of the damage, some of the buildings. We did lose several buildings. Wayside Littleway? Was it one of the buildings that was sold that was over on Brandon and Hughes property? Nobody died, I don't believe.
It was on Macklemore.
Macklemore, yeah. Nobody died. Did anybody get hurt?
It was
Wasn't
a
there a
lady,
lady in the
it was a
hotel?
lady behind Ed's station that broke her back in that cabin.
And then here's the fire of 38. There's what Ed's station looked like after it got through burning. I know you can't see that well, but I found this and I was tickled to death that they had written down where it was. People don't do that anymore. Yes, ma'am.
When was the town founded as a town?
It's either 1808 or 1809, depending on which one of the articles you read. I haven't looked at the original charter, but 1808 or 1809 is when we were officially chartered.
Also, interestingly enough, the town chartered and unchartered because they wanted to go dry. So I think the official, most recent charter is 1839. The first settler child was born in 1809, but we had, I think, 2 or 3 charters and uncharters in between because we changed our mind on whether we wanted to have booze in town or not.
Okay. That makes sense because we at the antique store. My wife said, if you don't tell people about the pass out cards from the store, I said, I'll forget. But anyway, my wife and I, we bought the antique store down at Carter's Creek Station. The main reason we bought it was to keep them comparing the building now. But anyway, I forgot what was going on with the store. Oh well, I'll take that one in. But anyway. Y'all remember the Gravity Shack? And let's hear somebody who ain't from around here say this word. You from here? Say that one. You tell somebody not here. Close. Pretty close. Neapolis, yeah.
I'm from New York.
Hey, do that on shoes. Yeah, I've heard people go Neapolis. I'm like, you ain't from here, are you? It's kind of like Murray instead of Maury or Maury. Yeah, anyway. But yeah, the Gravity Shack, technically not Spring Hill, but Neapolis. But yeah, we had a lot of stuff.
Hey, Gwen, do you have Cornman's thing up there?
What?
The Cornman store?
Oh, yeah.
It's an interesting story. It happened in a lot of small towns in the South.
Yeah, this was, like I say, that's what they would use for wrapping. If you bought something from them, they'd wrap it. And most people, nowadays what do? We throw everything away.
So Nathan Cornman was a Russian who came to Spring Hill, I don't know when, came with his family, had a dry goods store, and worked a deal with Branham and Hughes to sell their ribbons and their uniforms. It was actually called a Jew store. There's a book called by that name. It was common in that period in time when immigrants would come to New York or the larger cities on the East Coast for them to be sponsored into small towns in the South so they could start businesses. The challenge came when their kids became of age and wanted to be bar mitzvahed or get married. There was nobody else like them in the community. And so in this case, the Cornmans wound up moving back to Nashville. But they had a store roughly where the little white building is on Main Street, next to the empty lot. So I love that Gwen's got that because we don't have a lot of evidence of their store or their family here.
Yeah, it's there wasn't a whole lot of it here, so cookbook from the Methodist Church. I bet you know him. You know him.
I can't see that far. Yeah, my husband.
But yeah, I mean Spring Hill, and I think but we showed Jersey cattle up into the 70s and 80s, and they want everybody. Oh, cool. All right. Well, I'd like to say you're welcome to come up and look at the stuff. I rambled and I probably missed something, but you're welcome to look at it, ask questions. Yes, sir.
I used to make presentations up in the North Bank with the Hee Haw and Beverly Hillbillies and Dukes of Hazzard was all over the TVs. They really did think we were a bunch of hicks.
Yeah. Oh, I heard. Yeah.
I used to tell them a story. I said I woke up one night, my bathroom was just fire and it's going through the roof. I know it was gonna be a total loss. But thank God we were able to stop the fire before the fire got to the house. Those who don't get that, they all think we had outhouses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. But anyway, I remember now the Carter's Creek thing. That's why in Carter's Creek Station, it incorporated in 1870 and unincorporated in 1872 with a vote of 27-2. You know, so, you know, we were just a lot of small towns around, a lot of small history. So if you run across, you're welcome to look at this stuff. If you run across history or stuff, I'm hoping we'll find a place to, you know, leave it, give it to somebody that's gonna wanna keep it and, you know, and preserve it where it should be. Like I said, our history's been thrown away a couple of times, and that's one of the main reasons I started collecting it. If you're gonna throw it away, I'm either gonna be 6 foot under or unarmed. Because I'm not gonna let it happen again as long as it's stuff I've got. But I do hope that somewhere, some way, I'm hoping that the county will follow through with the museum thing and we can get it preserved. But anyway, you're welcome to look. And I think my time's up.
So Glenn's gonna be ready too, and I can pretty much promise you that when he says it's two, it's gonna be totally different to what he just showed you. Because there's so much stuff. It's a very rich and diverse history. We're very grateful to Glenn for his rescue efforts. If you have things, call his wife and drop them off on his porch. I'll give you his address so that he can have you, because we don't have a museum right now, and we're at a point where we have a generation of folks who have a lot of stuff that they'd like to share with the community. We really don't have a central place. The other place, though, in terms of documents, Dana will scan stuff here at the library, and you can have the originals back. But we need to start keep track of this stuff, because we've got some gaps where we've lost information. In the meanwhile, are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Whose house is that, or what is?
That is Ferguson Hall.
Okay.
So across, next to the Presbyterian Church, it's the children's home.